country. I work with the new home sales counselors up at the Welcome Center. I work with our builders, our construction team. I work with our title company, our lender, everyone. So, and our fabulous real estate agents. So I wanted to welcome everybody, and then I'm gonna have our experts introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves. So Isolette, you wanna start?
Okay, I'll start. My name's Isolette. It's spelled with a Y, pronounced like an E, Isolette. Isolette Daly. I'm with Realty Texas. I've been in real estate for 26 years. I actually live in the neighborhood. We had a TV built, and we'll be 3 years here in August. We love, love, love it here. And let's see, I'm a mother of total 5 combined, 6 grandkids. I love to play pickleball and I love to golf, and yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
I am Amy Knight Black. I am with Cooper Sotheby's International Realty. I have been selling real estate. This will be my 18th year. Grew up in the San Antonio area, so this has always been my playground. We blended our families 5 years ago, so now I have a birth 32 and a 28-year-old, and now I have a 21 and 16-year-old. So although I'd love to live out here, that 16-year-old is still there. The 21-year-old is at Texas Tech, so he'll graduate in December, but I'm looking forward to it. So I sell quite a bit out here. I love the area, so just a fun place to be.
I'm Eric Scott. I'm with Anderson Realty out of Houston. I moved here about 6 years ago from the Houston area, actually the Woodlands. And I'd retired 3 times, and this is my, I'm back. But my whole background was in financing, doing structured financings for enterprise and even public sector accounts, and for all the major manufacturers of the technology equipment. So I've done thousands and thousands of transactions, and I enjoy the whole art of selling. I love selling, but I also, out here in Kissing Tree, I'm pretty much what you call a buyer's agent. So I've been doing this for 3 years, which isn't that long, but I've had a lot of experience, probably done 30 houses, either on the buying or the selling side. So I've got a lot of experience with it, and happy to be here. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna just give you a brief overview of how this process is gonna go. We have some prepared questions. These are questions that our new home sales counselors at the Welcome Center have been hearing people asking, and we're gonna have everyone answer and chime in. It's very conversational, and then we'll have hopefully a little bit of time at the end where we can do some question and answering, and they all have brought some information at the back that you're welcome to grab on your way out. So you guys all ready? If you want to move in, you can. Just whatever if you guys, everyone can see and hear? Okay, great. Want to make everyone comfortable. So we're going to start with what key qualities should homeowners look for when selecting a realtor to sell their home? We'll start with Isolette.
Let's start with me again?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I really believe that one of the most important things when you're trying to accomplish anything in real estate, whether you're buying or selling, is that you find somebody that listens to your needs. You want to make sure that they're repeating, I understand this is what you're trying to accomplish, and understand your time frame. You know, we all have different goals in mind when we're trying to sell real estate. We have different time frames that we're trying to accomplish them in. And so make sure that you have someone that really listens well and that is going to be able to help you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish in that time frame. And I think personality match matters. I don't think everybody clicks with everybody all the time. So you want to make sure someone you feel comfortable enough that you can raise concerns to, not someone that you're afraid to have a conversation with. Someone that kind of meets you at that same level where you can say, you know, hey, I tried to reach you yesterday, you didn't get back with me. You know, you should be able to have free conversation with the real estate agent that you're working with. So I would say there should be a level of comfort with that.
Absolutely. So I always tease, you have kind of a short-term marriage or maybe even a long-term marriage with buying or selling a home, depending on the situation. So someone that, like you just said, that you want to work with, that you vibe with, you groove with, you're comfortable with, and you can laugh with, but also express when you are having some problem and you need to solve it. So I think that's most important. It just really, it settles with them. You're comfortable. because you are kind of stuck with us for a little while. So you want to make sure you're stuck with someone that you want to be hanging out with.
Besides the personality, which is really important, you don't want to work with someone that you don't like. But I really think it's important that your realtor, if you're selling your home, what are they going to do? How smart are they? How clever are they? What's their experience? How knowledgeable are they? How do they know the market? What are they going to do to sell your home? What are they making recommendations? Why are they coming up with the value that they're coming up with? And really, you're looking for someone that knows what they're doing. You want to have someone with experience and know-how and that you can trust. Again, the personality is important, whether you get along, but ultimately, do they communicate well with you? Do they let you know? Do they keep in touch? And when you're buying a place, it's a whole different kind of a thing too, but if you're going to get a realtor to help you buy a home out here, whether it's a resale home or a new construction or whatever you're going to do, listening is a big thing for that whoever you talk to, he's listening to you. He knows or she knows what you want and what you don't want, and also understands the market here. So I exclusively work in Kissing Tree as an example. Well, I think I know this market pretty well. So, but there's a lot of people who also work here, live here, and sell here. So I just think it's how clever are they? How smart are they? How hard will they work? Are they motivated? Do they have energy? Do you feel that energy? Are they going to work with you? To me, that's what it is.
That's great, that's great. What does it mean to have solid buyers lined up, and why is it important to ensure buyers have a strong financial commitment before making an offer on a new home? Amy, do you want to start?
We just had this discussion, so I apologize. I feel like I'm repeating myself. But yes, so when you do receive an offer on your home, as a good agent, you should call the lender. You're going to get a pre-qual letter, or you're going to get a proof of funds that says they can pay cash for the home, depending on what the offer is. But I always like to talk to the lender or the provider of the proof of funds. So if it's Merrill Lynch, you just call and verify that they actually have the funds in their account. It's kind of easy to make some things that are not exactly true. So I like to just verify that this is really their account and they really can buy it. And it's when it's the lender, I want to make sure they truly are qualified and they do just go online. I want to make sure that they actually looked at their W-2s. They've already started the process. Because when they send a pre-qual letter, it can be something very simple. Yep, pre-qualified, look, you said you make this money, we're good. Well, I really want to know that they've looked at the credit report, they've checked and made sure that they actually are making this money and they're still working there and so forth. So just making sure that you have a solid buyer. Can't always promise they're going to make it all the way to the closing table, but I want to make sure they're qualified to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pre-qualification letter is interesting because it does have a lot of holes in it too. I mean, but it's a good thing to have. It shows the proof of funds. I've had that happen where people take a screenshot of their main brokerage account at Schwab or whatever, and they'll send it. So that's good. But I think all of us we're wasting our time if we don't know whether the buyer is coming in or do they have the means to do this. So many times I've in my learning curve have gone after transactions where the buyer really wasn't capable of doing it. And that's a waste of everyone's time. And it took the house, tied it up. So getting solid buyers is important, and couldn't understate that.
I want to stress too that when you're working with somebody, if you're working in the capacity of a buyer, you're working with a real estate agent, don't take offense to them asking you for this, because in the end, they're ultimately, when you do submit an offer, you're a stronger buyer, especially if more than one buyer is putting an offer in. And so, I've dealt with people that have said, well, how much more information do you want? And it's not necessarily that I am wanting it, but I want to put you in a position so that when we do submit an offer, that there's no questions and that that it would go through. As a listing agent, I ask for it. So I may go back to Eric and go, hey, I want to make sure we have this, and this in line before I present this offer to the sellers, and it just protects everybody involved and makes it a little bit more likely that you'll make it to the end goal. So, yeah.
What are some of the most common misconceptions buyers and sellers have about today's current market conditions, especially around pricing and time on the market? Gisela, you want to start us off?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that the number of days on the market means there's something wrong with the house. So I think that we've gone through some transitions. Real estate has its ups and downs. We went through COVID and we had the big demand, a lot of buyers lining up to buy houses, that kind of thing was happening. We're not there anymore. And sometimes it takes a while, depending also on the seller's motivation to sell and their time frame. If I sit down with somebody and they say, I want to sell this house, but I've got a year before I really need to get out of here, I'm fine. If we test the market, I want to try and see if I can get a little bit more. I might have a different pricing conversation with that person than somebody with the exact same house that says I want to be out in 9 months or 90 days. So that might make a difference. And sometimes there's people that are just wrapping their head around the new market that we're in, because we're not in that high price market anymore as far as the seller goes. And so sometimes they're behind the price point. They're behind the ideal price point. And so they're playing catch up and maybe doing price reductions. But the number of days on the market doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the home. It usually just means there was some level of mispricing that happened at some point along the way. So I would say that's one.
Yeah, I agree. Days on the market is your first instinct to think something's wrong with the home, and it doesn't necessarily mean that. We could have listed the home when the market was a little higher, and now we're reducing the price as well as the market is reducing the prices at the rest of the competition. So that's definitely an issue that people see.
I agree with both those. I'm not going to add.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. Some homeowners feel like resales aren't selling at all in their area. How do you address this fear, and what can they do to make their listing more appealing? Eric, do you want to start?
Okay, so it's two questions.
And this is the one I got mixed up on last time.
So I'll leave the getting your home ready for you guys. I'll focus on that first part of that question.
Do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some homeowners feel like resales aren't selling at all in their area. How do you address this fear?
So no matter where you're coming from, probably houses are selling. They may be slow, and we've hit a slow period, but just because you walk in and say, my house won't sell, well, that's not really true. And if you get a realtor that can pull up the sales over the last 6 months or 9 months or whatever, 3 months, they will give you a list of houses that sold. Now, you may not like the prices, but they're selling. So when people say, well, no way I can sell that house. I mean, I'm having a real hard time. The market's horrible where I'm from. Well, the market might be bad, but there are people are buying, no matter where. I mean, other than maybe out in Big Bend National Park, 50 miles from the center. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that houses are selling. Then the question is, what are you listing it at? How competitive is that? How does that compare to what's been going on? Dollars per square foot, doing the CMA competitive market analysis, that's all important. But you can sell it, but then you got to figure out how you're going to get it ready. How you're going to get that house ready to sell, get it fresh, get it nice, and to be competitive with what has sold. So understand that market is important. So.
Do you want me to read the second half again?
That'd be amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a big loaded question. Okay, so some homeowners feel like resales aren't selling at all in their area. What can they do to make their listing more appealing?
Yes. So we mentioned that the cleanliness is a huge part. Just, walk into a house and it's just not clean. That's going to be a very big turnoff, and they're going to be out. Aroma in the house, which I feel like as a homeowner, you become kind of nose blind to, your little Ralphie who's running around the floor and you don't really smell him anymore. So, have someone who doesn't come in and live with you kind of come in, hey, how does the home smell? Because the smells can really turn someone off. And then eliminating clutter. We all collect a lot of things. Unfortunately, we all do. And so whether it be shoes or whether it be knickknacks, we all take your collections and put them away. In the closets and the pantries, I always suggest you take everything off the bottom of the closet and the pantry. It really gives an illusion that that room is actually bigger than it is, and everybody wants a big pantry and a big closet. So just remove everything off the bottom. I'd rather have boxes in the garage than have a big collection of things inside the house. Take your pictures down that are like of your cute little grandbabies or your sweet little pet, because I'm telling you the buyer will come in and pay more attention to the picture of that baby or that pet than they are going to be, and you want them to see themselves in the house. So if you'll just eliminate all the personal pictures and the collections on the walls, because sometimes there's homes that there isn't even any sheetrock to be seen because there are so many things on the wall. Well, as a buyer, they come in, and although those may be beautiful items on the wall, they're thinking, I have to putty in all those nails, and then I got to paint that whole wall. So eliminate as much as you can. You know, less is more in this situation, definitely. And so countertops clean, you know, bathroom cabinets clean, even though you sit there. And then on a security note, I always tell people to make sure you turn off your computer or laptop, put away any medications and jewelry and so forth. Just, you know, you're anticipating no issues that someone's going to try to steal from you, but if you make it so accessible, I just always like to just eliminate that issue so you won't have to face it.
In case they have like a little 3-year-old grandson that might something
Mhm.
say. But price and condition is big. It always comes down to price and condition. So a house will sell. It's just what is the condition and what would that price be for that? And because 97% of buyers shop the internet before they usually go out looking in person, the first impression is the photography, you know, impression. It's the what they see on the internet. And I think that's where you want to make the biggest impression first, is where people are seeing it first. Mm-hmm. And so to the point that Amy and Eric are making, cleanliness is big, and you want people to come in there and see the house and remember the house. I've shopped with buyers where it becomes, you know, they have nicknames for the house, you know.
Oh, yes.
You know, that was the painting house. Oh yeah, that was this house, and they don't remember the house. They remember the items in the house. That was the blue house. It had the blue wall.
Yeah, the red door.
That's the house when you're talking about it. Yeah. So the more that you can make it mild, if you will, on the inside, the better that it will show in pictures. Just like when you walk into model homes and you're like, wow, this looks nice. It's because it's very simplistic, very clean, not a lot of things on the counters, you know. And so yeah, you want to have that same first impression.
Awesome. That's awesome. Which actually leads us into the next question, which is, why is professional staging and photography so important in today's market, and how does it impact the likelihood of a sale? Is that you want to
start?
Yeah.
So when I started real estate, I used to pay a professional stager to come in and stage the houses for me, and it's considerable as far as paying somebody to come in and stage a home. And there's two different ways to stage when you say stage a home. One is where you bring in furniture and you stage the home that way. And the other one is to stage the home with the items that you already have in the house. So there's two different ways that you can stage. The one that I'm talking about, where I brought in a professional stager, is where she would come in and give advice, and she'd go room by room and page by page and write all the notes for the home seller so they could prepare the house. So I am absolutely pro stager, although that's a service that I offer because I've done it for so long. I can walk through and I can tell you what you need to do so that it can look its best, and might tweak some furniture, move some things around. But it's important because it's going to be, again, reflected in the photos, and you want people to walk in and see how nice the house can look. So I'm a big proponent of it, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you necessarily have to have a professional stager. If you can usually use what you have in your home, and just less of it is a big thing. Clear off the countertops and put the big flowers in the middle and so forth. So we try to use what you already have rather than bringing them in. If you do have a vacant home, then sometimes we'll do virtual staging where you have pictures, because people are just not very creative and they can't figure out where the sofa is supposed to be in this room, or how do you set the table. So we try to kind of give them with the virtual staging to show them what it could be, which is why builders have model homes, so that people can kind of see how you're supposed to put this together. But I believe the biggest thing is removing a lot of yourself and a lot of the things and limiting it.
So virtual stage, I've never done one as a listing agent, but I ran into one that was totally staged just recently. That Isolette was the realtor, and it was a brand new home, not too far from here, and they'd never moved in that house, and how much did they pay? Can you say for the virtual staging? How much did it cost?
For the virtual staging,
I'm not virtual staging. I'm talking about real staging.
It was $1,500 for a 90-day contract.
Okay, so I didn't know how much that was, but so I had a couple that came in from up in North Texas, up in Denton, looking at houses, and we showed them all the different houses and whatnot. They went to the sales center, and they came into this house that Isolette had listed for sale, and it was beautiful furniture, just like the model homes. It was beautiful, beautiful furniture. And that night they called, we want to make an offer, and we got the deal done the following day. And that just said something to me. It's like, I can't even believe that. I thought it was going to be a lot more money than that. The other thing that some people do is, if the furniture is really old or antique looking, just take the furniture out and have it. Another way of doing it is to have the photographs taken of the house and then virtually stage it with virtual furniture, but you have to include that in the listing. It has to say, this furniture is virtually staged. This is not what really was there, and it has to be prominent for the Trek rules and everything. But that helps. I'm of the belief that I'd rather see a house empty than a bunch of old, cluttered, antique furniture around. That's just me. I mean, some people love old antiques and trinkets and all that. Yeah.
I have a question. So if I were to buy, and I would buy who I think, but I'm gonna sell my home, and I have furniture in there that I'm not gonna bring with me here. So, but I think it would be nice to keep it there, like a little baby grand piano, you say, but I know I'm gonna have to get rid of it. Would you tell me to get rid of it now and have less in that room? Or would you say, oh, well, it really does look good in that house, that might sell this house?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at I have some big pieces of furniture that I hope to sell with the house.
Mm.
I don't wanna have to get rid of it. I mean, there's beautiful pieces, but they're not gonna fit in my house. So
Well,
the other question too
yeah.
is, you have a lot of antique furniture, okay?
More valuable.
So that's the other thing,
It's more valuable than the new.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
So it's just a matter of,
Yeah.
do you sell your things, or just like you said, put it in the garage, cover it with a sheet or something to have less in the house? I mean, it depends on what you're gonna bring and what you're not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
let's-
I
you
feel
go
like
ahead.
when you have a baby grand piano, something like that,
It's a small one,
you
but-
kind of have an area for it. Frequently, an organ and piano will go with the house because it is something that, I have custom home builders who literally they build a room for that beautiful piece of
This is
furniture.
like studio baby.
Okay.
It's only like 4 feet.
So smaller.
But it makes the room really nice.
Mhm.
If you took that out, you could put a card table in there if you wanted, and make
Mhm.
it like a little sitting area.
Yeah,
But
I wouldn't answer that question without seeing
Without
it for
seeing it.
myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's not an easy blanket answer, because I have actually a listing right now, it's under contract, but I have a listing in here, and they have a grand piano in there, and it actually maximizes the room, because the room is so large that piano in there
Yeah.
really makes you see how large the room is. So if taking it out wouldn't have really made it, make or break it kind of thing.
Okay.
So I would,
Okay.
and I had something else I was gonna elaborate on that question, but I forgot the answer. I
Oh,
had
Well-
an answer, and I forgot the question.
Well, do you think an interior decorator is a worthwhile investment for her to have someone come in, other than, maybe a good realtor over there, wherever you're at, but maybe have a second opinion from a professional?
I'd start with the realtor first, because if they have the skill set to help you, then you don't have to do the other expense. And I never come from the angle where you should spend a lot of money to try to sell your home. I just don't come from that way. So I always try to work with whatever is there already. So I would answer that way. I think I was going to elaborate on the point that Eric had made about this deal that we have, because it was a home buyer who bought brand new and knew they were never going to move here under contract stage. So at some point before. And they had an illness that struck their family, so they didn't make the move. So he contacted me before he closed on it as a buyer here. And then he closed on it on a buyer, and I literally listed it the next day, and I had the photographs ready to go and everything, but it was vacant. They never moved in, they never brought furniture, they just never came. So it was vacant, and then we had it staged about 4 weeks later, made a world of difference, and within, I think, 3 days, literally, Eric brought me an offer with the buyer on that one. That's a great testimony to how that staging can work to your advantage sometimes. Oh, I remembered my answer. The other thing is, there is technology now that, AI, very mixed feelings about whether I love it or hate it, but for this purpose, you can take photos and AI can remove furniture. And
Right.
you can take a house or a room with a bunch of furniture in it, AI can remove the furniture, and then AI can put other furniture in. So to Eric's point, he's just trying to say, more fresh and updated will compete, you'll compete as a listing more on the level with the model homes, for example. You go up in there and ooh, ah, right? So that's another alternative than moving furniture. But if you know it's something that you're not gonna move, and you know it's something you don't love, and you know you're gonna get rid of it, I'd say get rid of it. I'd just say get rid of it then. You're saving
Me too.
yourself the hassle later anyhow.
And then you're in a rush. Now you're under contract, you got 30 days to get rid of the furniture. You just get rid of, you said they're very large pieces also. And I'm sure they're beautiful, but if they're large, they're probably really consuming a lot of space in the room,
Yeah.
and people want it to be open.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Can I just make an additional?
absolutely.
Sometimes, if you think that the property looks great with a few pieces left, if you have someone that comes in and does the staging, they might incorporate that
Absolutely.
and use part of it as their staging plan, and it works. And
Absolutely.
I've seen that. I've seen that.
Absolutely. She was
Yeah.
mentioning the antique furniture. I think you can
Yes.
definitely incorporate the antique furniture in with the newer look as well.
So I wouldn't get rid of it yet, but perhaps get a good stager who really knows how to do their thing, and come in and say, how would you incorporate this?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is just a question. When you list a property, do you offer a packet of some kind that may include an inspection from the seller, or something that would answer questions for your buyers, rather than to have them come back and say, well, I like it, but I don't know if there's anything wrong with the house? Well, you know what we know. So make your offer based on what we know, and that's it.
Well, we have here in Texas a seller's disclosure. So the seller has a form that they fill out, several pages, and they check all the boxes. The roof is, 3 years old. Do you know of anything in the home that needs repaired, and they list it. And so we do have that information prior to you ever making an offer. You should really have that.
I'll pipe into
Yeah.
that. So I get the point though, like if you want to have a home inspection, you want to be proactive, it's kind of a fine line, and here's why. Because even if you have it inspected and perfected, it's what that home inspector said. And then you also have the buyer who's going to not possibly trust that whatever that seller already did and said is true. So they're still going to hire their own inspector, who will also always find something. So I don't know that it's worth the money to have the home inspected before you list it, because I've seen it happen. You have it inspected, you have it perfected, everything's checked off the list, and the home buyer walks in and you go, here's the inspection, because you have to disclose that you've had an inspection once you've had an inspection.
Exactly.
So then you go, here's the inspection, and oh, by the way, here's all the receipts, see all the work we had done. Yeah, now I'm hiring my own person. I don't know that that's not all true or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen it where the sellers do have these inspections, and they're usually done by first-class inspectors.
Yep.
And if the buyers say, I don't trust that, I'm gonna get my own, he pays for it.
yes,
The
Right.
buyer pays
Yes.
for his inspection.
yes,
But then there's no questions asked.
Right.
The price comes from that, if there is.
Right.
an offer.
but then they can always come back and try to negotiate repairs on that new inspection they had done.
Okay.
So it's, I'm not saying yes or no exactly on that. It's every kind of situation. It also depends maybe on the age of the house. When was the last time they had a really good look over or maintenance done on it? And so there's kind of a lot of different factors, but lately buyers have been, very much due diligence, and they want, to know for themselves.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, those are good questions. Those
Yeah.
are really good
Can I
questions.
ask you a question?
Yeah.
TVs, I'm seeing that, how significant is it? I mean, today's world, every room's got a TV, basically, and they're usually on the wall, and you may have the furniture next to it that so you don't have any wires.
Mhm.
How How significant is that to have that TV on the wall, or should that be removed?
So the Texas contract states that the brackets stay with the home, and so that's the standard resale. It is written in that would stay. And I think that that's to prevent, wall damage of the removal and everything like that. But just like a light fixture stays, so would the brackets stay. And it
I
depends,
think
like,
that more marketing. angle.
yeah, so from the marketing angle of it, I think TVs are fine on the wall, especially if the wires aren't exposed.
So
Yes.
all the mounts stay, the mounts?
So that's the way the contract's written. It's
Yeah.
standard that the brackets stay. And so because the brackets stay, a lot of times the home buyer's like, well, am I gonna find the right TV that fits that bracket? And so that can also be negotiated, like, okay, just have them take the TVs and the mounts off, as long as they fill all the holes. Or sellers, lately, it seems, people that I've been working with, they leave it. So they'll say, TVs and brackets all included, and then they just get to move in with the remote, ready to go. Yeah,
That's the most common you see now.
Yeah.
that is what I'm seeing now,
That's what
yeah.
I figured. yeah.
I mean, they can damage in transit and stuff, and they don't wanna risk it, and sometimes it's just,
Be connected and all.
yeah.
Right.
Sometimes it's just easier to leave it, so.
Anything mounted to the wall is supposed to convey.
Right.
So if you have a mirror or anything that you've mounted to the wall, you can't just take it off. It's supposed to stay, which is why the TV wall mounts are supposed to stay.
So do you figure that into the price then? If you're gonna leave, let's say you're gonna leave a couple of big, large screens, is that significant enough to even affect the sale price?
Unfortunately, no, but another angle might be that you don't put it out there up front that you're leaving the TVs, and then you use it on a negotiation later, yeah.
Okay.
So we want you to fix this, this, and this, no, but we'll credit you $1,000 and we'll leave the TVs on the wall, something like that.
Yeah, we all know when you go into a Costco or a Sam's Club, you can buy a pretty nice set, maybe not an OLED
Especially
today. I
Oh,
mean, you're
they're so
$1,000, so it's just easier to,
Yeah.
unless it's a really faint, some of the new ones, some of the 84 inches OLEDs, which are $5,000 or something, or that's a different thing, but yeah.
This is a really good conversation, and it leads into another question, which is how important is it for sellers to refresh or update their home before a listing? And what type of improvements typically yield the best return on investments? Yeah, Amy, you want to
Me?
start? Yeah.
Absolutely. Kitchens and bathrooms are big. So if you have a really, outdated kitchen and bathroom, those are the first things that actually earn you most money on your sales. Freshen paint paint's inexpensive. So if you can just paint a wall, like I mentioned, taking all the photos off the wall and painting the wall and having one big artwork on there, it just really helps that. But if you're going to spend the money on updating, it's all about kitchens and bathrooms. Nobody wants to walk in and be on dirty carpet, so have the carpet cleaned, and cleanliness is huge. But if you're going to remodel, just keep kitchens and bathrooms.
Yeah, it's for sure. I mean, the cleaner you make it, the fresher you make it, the no sense, the better you're off. I mean, it's getting your home ready is, I've said this before. The more I don't know, I went through a period where there was all kinds of people that were selling their houses with green walls or blue walls, in their living room, and you look at it and go, wow, that And I actually lost a listing because I offended, or I said, we need to get you need a lot of things. That wall, that turquoise is not going to help us. And ultimately, it never did sell. What are you laughing about?
Because I know exactly what
Yeah. So, it's funny. She found another realtor and that was fine. And it sat there, and then I noticed a paint truck. And sure enough, it still hasn't. The problem with that was that she should have done it way back then. So she had that home sitting on the market all this time. She priced it unrealistically. Anyone that was looking for a home at that point ruled that out. So even though she came back, she reduced the price, she had it painted, she missed an entire group of people that might have been at one point willing to buy it.
For a very inexpensive
Yes.
fix.
Yes.
Because to pipe in, I never encourage people to spend money to sell the house. So if, I don't think it's necessary. There's ways to work around most things. That would have been an inexpensive fix. But also, it depends on the norm for where you are, for what you're selling, where you are selling. Because if the norm is, if you're gonna be on the market and the norm's gonna be that your competition have redone kitchens and bathrooms, then you might have to go ahead and bite the bullet and do it, you know? But, otherwise, you know, you price accordingly for the condition of the home that it's in at that time, instead of dropping 20 or 40 grand to get potentially 20 or 40 grand. But it's all a matter of timing. What are you trying to accomplish in what amount of time, and what is your competition in that area, in that market where you are? Yeah.
Mhm.
That's great, that's great. Speaking of timing, with the current interest rates, some people are waiting to sell, thinking the rates will go back to historically low levels.
I like that giggle.
These are what I hear. How do you help clients manage these expectations and decide when is the right time to sell?
I think he wanted you to repeat the whole question.
Oh, I'm
I think he
sorry.
didn't hear the question.
Okay, I'm sorry. With current interest rates, some people are waiting to sell, thinking rates will go back to historically low levels. How do you help clients manage these expectations and decide the right time to sell? Oh, I'm sorry, Amy.
Okay, we all wait. I don't think they're going to go back to historic lows for quite some time, if ever. And I by no means have a crystal ball. I really wish I did, but from what I understand, we're going to have 1 to 2 rate cuts within 2025. So it's not going to be 3%. It's not going to probably even be 4%. I think we might actually get into the 5s, which is going to be great since the loan I closed recently was 6.75. That was the best I could get. So I don't think there's a weight on that. I think people have finally decided that's true. And they're finally like, all right, it's not going to drop down to 3 again, so I'm ready. I'm going to go ahead and move. Whereas I think people were very much waiting for this amazing interest rate. Mm-hmm. And then it was election year. So everybody assumes when election year, no matter what political space that you're in, you feel like during election year, they want to come in and make changes and make them look even better, whoever it is. And that didn't happen so far. So people are like, okay, I'm gonna make a move. So I just think it's still slower. I think prices have dropped on homes and competitive, especially resale homes, because competing with builders and the incentives they offer, which are insane lately. And so we just have to price competitively and put it on the market with best photos that you can, best foot forward, make it look as best as you can. And depending on your area where you're moving from, I mean, we're obviously different than maybe where you're coming from. San Antonio is a military city. Military gets their orders usually in the end of March. So end of March is when we start kind of seeing things move again. Houses come on the market because they have to go. They're leaving, so they got to sell the home. And then people who got the orders to come here are now coming. So we have a lot of transitions during this time in the San Antonio area because of that. So it just depends on timing in your area. Kissing Tree doesn't really have, I don't think, that particular point. We're all kind of deciding when it's best for us to move to the community, and it could be any time of the year for us. So a little different here, but when you're trying to sell the home that you're selling to come here, you kind of need to talk to your realtor and find out what their best times are and what their ideas are of the best time to sell. For us, it's March, April, May, June.
Yeah, I definitely would not hold off selling my house hoping that interest rates would go down. I wouldn't do that. Because they may or they may not. And we don't know what interest rates are going to do. I mean, you hear the people on the mainstream media and they'll say one thing, and then you hear someone else, Kramer, says something different. And, you know, we don't know where interest rates are going. If we did, we'd be a lot smarter people. But
We'd be wealthy.
Yeah, we would be. We could be really if you did futures contracts. But, yeah, so I think that you're waiting on interest rates are not worth waiting for, and that's the bottom line. And then, you know, a lot of the talk out here now is that if rates go down, you know, let's say you buy something and you borrow money to buy something now, and you're saying, oh my God, I'm paying 6.5% fixed, whatever. There's a lot of talk about refinance. You know, there's costs involved in refinance though too. You know, you've got to go, I don't know, you probably know if you had to get a new survey and a new everything else, but you know, there are costs associated with refinancing. So you've really got a big decision there. But refinancing is really what's driving a lot of people to go ahead and say, I'm going to commit, I'm going to borrow the money. I'm paying a lot of money for the money, but I know at some point it's going to come down. And at that point, I'll consider whether I want to refinance or just pay off the mortgage.
Yeah. Date the rate, marry the house.
So there's a couple things I'll tack on to that. One, it depends on if we're talking about Kissing Tree specifically, we're all in the 55+ demographic. My experience has been that the majority of the buyers are doing a large chunk down or all cash buyers. Not everybody's doing all cash because people like to diversify their investments. But for that reason, I wouldn't say delay selling, because your likely buyer may not be doing a full finance environment. Also, because we're all established, we've already kind of had careers, we're all established. An important thing to note is that some of these investment houses, like I think Schwab and I can't remember the other one right now off the top of my head, but if you have money invested in, you know, in some stocks or any kind of holdings with one of these investment houses, they give members some incredibly good interest rates on mortgage loans. And so even if the market is here, if you're an investor, you have money in one of these investment houses over here, you're gonna get a better deal with them because, and some of them are based on the amount of money that they hold for you. And so the more money you have, the better, you know, they'll give you another half point off or another half point off. So to delay because of what interest rates are now, that's not to sell, that's not a legitimate, I mean, I would overcome that objection with this other information. And also, to Eric's point, refinancing later could always be a thing, but yeah, it again, goes back to what is the goal and what is your motivation to sell, what are you trying to accomplish in what time frame. If you have, you know, if you need to sell, you don't be discouraged because you can overcome the interest rates that we're at right now, which are still really great compared to, you know,
Yeah,
where they've
double
been.
digits.
And yeah.
Yeah, that's great. We're gonna switch it up a little bit, and we're gonna talk, because we've been talking about 55+ communities, talking about Kissing Tree. So we're gonna share, can you share some benefits of purchasing in a 55+ active adult community? Let's start with Eric.
Okay, well, the big thing is everyone has got the same situation in their lives. We're all at a senior age, so you've got a lot in common with a lot of people. And what I've noticed out here especially is that people move in here, they don't know anyone. They're pioneers, and that, I think that's maybe where the term came from initially, what Kissing Tree used to use for the first people that bought out here, because everyone that comes out here doesn't necessarily know everybody. They're hoping they're going to meet people, they're hoping it's going to be good, but they're pioneering. They're moving in, hopefully they're making the right decision. I mean, that's what we're doing. But once you move in here, you find that there's, I don't know how many people we have here now. I don't know what's the number. But you're going to find people that have similar interests, especially in our demographic and our age. You know, whether you're a golfer, or a pickleball player, or a bocce ball player, or a bowler, or arts person, or whatever. You're active, you want to go tubing or go on day trips. I mean, everyone, there's people that you meet who all have something in common. There's going to be a lot of people that have a lot in common with what you got. I mean, that's typically what you, as long as you venture out and say, I want to do it, there's a club or a group that will be there to join. So I think that's the big thing. It's just the common element that we all have moving out here.
Absolutely. There's always something to do.
Mm-hmm.
Always something to do. If you're bored, it's because you chose to.
Yeah.
There is a lot of things to do and a lot of communities that build within the community, you know, because they're all interested in the same thing.
Yeah, I'd say we're very inclusive too. I mean, we're all kind of over, actually this is kind of a good story. So there's a gal that I know, she's a good friend of mine, she's in my Bible study group, and I've known her for over 2 years. And we competed against each other in cornhole last year, and she's very active and athletic. And for the first time, about 3 months ago, I go, what did you used to do for work? She goes, I was a PE coach. Of course you were. Of course you were. No wonder you're so good at everything that you do. But I mean, your past lives and things that you used to do aren't really a topic of conversation too much around here. We're very, very inclusive. I've lived in communities where it was all about, oh, you know, I'm this person, or, you know, and some egos are involved. But here I feel like it's off the table. We're all trying to just live our best lives. And it is very active. I mean, very, very active. You'll get to the point where you'll have too many things to do and you have to start turning invitations away. My husband's kind of gotten there. He's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we've been home more than 2 or 3 nights this week. And I'm like, okay, I'll say no. I'll say no. I'll say no. So yeah, no,
That's
it's super, super great here.
We're gonna end with one question that I'm gonna have y'all kind of give us a nugget. So it's, what's one piece of advice you would give to homeowners to help make their home more appealing and the selling process easier? So it's your one little nugget. So Amy, you wanna start?
Oh, sure. Well, I kind of think we touched base on some of that, you know, cleanliness. Don't be offended when they ask you to put away things because you are taking yourself out of the home. So I think the biggest thing is just, and be available. You know, when you're trying to sell your home and they call and they only give you an hour notice, just get out of there. Just let them go see it. You don't want to miss that buyer. And it's unfortunate because you do. They often will not circle back. So you just really lost that opportunity. So just, you know, be accommodating, get out of there, try to live a little bit lighter if you can, you know, and just make your house very presentable and desirable for the next person to come in.
So I would agree with that, and on top of that, I would think that on your house, price it where it should sell. If you want to sell it, price to sell it. A lot of people will say, well, you know, my house is worth, you know, $400,000, but I'm going to price it at $475 because I don't want to leave money on the table, and nobody wants to leave money on the table. Nobody does. So my one tidbit would be to work with a realtor that really knows the market, that you really think that he's smart or she's smart, whatever. And get justification. Why is it that I should list at that price instead of that price or that price or that price? So price it right, and then the other things. That's my one thing. She said her one thing. Right, Amy?
I'm going to piggyback on Eric's point. Pricing right really can make a difference, and here's what I don't think that a lot of home sellers understand, is when you put your house on the market and you put it at a price that you put it at, if you have a good buyer's agent, right, Eric, then when the buyer goes to make an offer, they want to see the numbers too. They don't pull a pie in the sky number out. They're making an informed decision, and if you think they're not looking at the same numbers that you were looking at, you're wrong. They're looking at the same numbers, and so then they'll go, oh my, this isn't anywhere close to what the market is at. You know, we'll pass on this one. Let's go find something we don't have to fight for as much. So that, I think, just to elaborate it, is very important. Pricing can help, but also, I said this earlier, y'all might have been coming in when I was saying this, but smell matters. So if you have a dog, or you have a cat, or you have, I don't know, your grandson just left with a pamper in the trash, smell matters. People will walk in, and if they're smell averse, they're out the door before you get a chance. I even had somebody that I tried to show a house to, and it had plug-ins, Glade plug-ins, but it was too much for them. So they walked in and they walked out, and I was like, the house is clean, it's perfect, but it smelled too much good for them. So neutral as you can be on that, but smell matters, yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, we purchased our first house back in the 80s, and last time we purchased a house was 2020. And the real estate commissions were pretty standard. And I know there's been a change with the National Real Estate Association case. Can you kind of give me your take on what the industry standard is right now for commissions?
I'll answer.
Okay.
In 10 minutes?
I'll try. Okay, so in August of 2024, that class action lawsuit resulted in ultimately the MLS is taking commission out of the MLS database. So prior to that, any buyer, any agent could go to MLS and they could look in there and see what the commission was paid to the buyer agent. Commissions are not standard. They are negotiable. So just so you know that, you should be informed there is no standard. You
There
can
never has been.
negotiate on that. But to the point that I'm trying to make regarding what has happened, I thought in practice that would end up happening eventually was instead of the seller paying for the buyer agent commission and the listing agent commission, I thought we would move into a scenario where buyers were paying the buyer agent commission. That's what I envisioned when all of this happened in August. But in actual practice, that has not been the case at all. Because what is now happening is every buyer agent has to have a conversation with their buyer about the house that they're going to show. They have to have a legal document. I'm committed to work with you, you're committed to work with me. This is the property address I'm gonna show you, and this is the commission that it pays. Because now Eric has to ask me on my listing, what is the buyer agent commission? Because he has to have that form signed with that buyer. Now, but it's good that this is happening, because I think prior, until this happened, agents weren't having these conversations, especially buyer's agents, as to how they were getting compensated and how much they were getting compensated. So the buyer never knew, how much is my agent really getting anyway? Not to discount that it's not deserving, but the conversations weren't taking place in all fairness, and now they are, and they should have been all along. So, but what's happening now is the seller is still paying buyer agent commissions, because they're afraid if they stop paying the commission, then the buyer has to take that on their side. And so if you were qualified, say, for a $400,000 home, and you're gonna pay a 2, 3, 4% commission on top, that changes your affordability. That changes the conversation on everything you're doing. Your down payment, your monthly payment, everything changes. So sellers don't wanna miss the boat on having their house exposed to buyers, so they're still paying. But they are negotiating a little bit harder, and then buyers agents are also negotiating theirs as well. And so if the seller, say for example, is only gonna pay I say only 3%, say they're gonna pay a 3% commission, and that buyer's agent says, I work for a 4% commission, then they need to have that conversation with a buyer and say, would you compensate me the 1% difference on this property, because this is what they're paying, this is what I work for. And so everything's now up for negotiation and conversation. Did that help?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that 10
But,
minutes?
but I will say that generally speaking, the standard has been 3% goes to the listing agent and 3% typically to the buyer's agent, and typically it's paid by the seller, all of those expenses. And this whole settlement has made a lot of people that don't know what it means. How does that affect me? But I'll give you an example. Let's just say that there's a house up here that's paying 1% to a buyer's agent. So I get paid 1%, but I like to make 3, as an example. I want it for all the stuff that goes along with it. I think I'm worth 3. So what I'm gonna probably have to do is go back to that, like Isla said, to the buyer and say, he's only paying 1 and I need 3. So you've got to pay 2 points to me in addition to that 1. And that's not really going to go over that well, typically, for most people. I mean, they might say, we'll negotiate it on the price and all that kind of thing, and maybe get it lower. But a seller today, they feel that they should be able to cut the commissions. But it isn't really happening the way I think that everyone expected it was going to.
Yeah,
But it does promote a lot of conversation about agents' commissions. And a lot of people don't really like how much agents make, right? I mean, that's not the best topic, but it is, with the work that goes into it, it's actually worth it, believe it or not. I mean, I came from an area where I didn't ever like the notion of paying these commissions. But now that I'm doing it, and
And you see how much work goes into it.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a
they're
lot of work
killing
that
me,
goes
yeah,
into it.
so.
But you're earning it.
I will,
That's a great question.
it is a great
Great
question, and I will
question.
say, since this happened in August, I've had one circumstance where I was showing a $1.5 million buyer, and in that one instance, when I reached out to the listing agent and I said, what's the commission? She said, it's negotiable, depends on the price, the ultimate agreed price. That makes a little bit of a harder conversation for you and your buyer, because you don't know where you're gonna land, So it helps at least if there's a starting point, but you tell me it's negotiable, then all our heads are up in the air on that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great question. Did anyone else have any
Just
questions?
one question. How do you know you're getting a good realtor? With that technology we have today with marketing homes, drones, videos, is that essential pretty much now that it has a video, that it has a drone video of the home above? I mean, that seems to be, you see it more and more. Is that indication that that's a good realtor?
No, that's not an indication that that's a good realtor. But it depends. Every house has to be marketed according to what that house has to offer. So if I have a house that backs up to a dumpster, I probably don't want an aerial.
Yes.
You know, it just depends. Every circumstance is different. So what you really need is you need a good realtor will know how to market specifically your property to the most likely buyer of your property. So, you know, obviously in here I can go, okay, your most likely buyer's 55 plus, you know. But if it was outside of the community, it would really depend on who's the most likely. Would it be a family with kids that I need to kind of be heavy on the notes that I make regarding how that would benefit a family living situation versus whether it's a single person and things like that. But I mean, certainly all these services are out there, and most realtors are using them in some form or fashion. And aerial views do help from the front for most houses to kind of come up a little higher so you're looking down so you can see some of the landscape if there's benefit in that. But if it's a regular house, then there's not a whole lot that's going to benefit to have that aerial view, then maybe I wouldn't go that route. So it's all, for me, very specific. I don't know if you guys handle it any different.
Well, I just want to say that, you know, when someone wants to have an aerial shot, you know, drone shot, typically a good photographer is going to charge
Oh, yeah.
$150 or $200 or $250
On
top of your other pictures. So when you tell a realtor might say, well, I'm going to do aerial shots, drone shots. Well, that's really nice. But some realtors are going, I don't know if I want to spend that much more money because I'm already spending all this other money that I'm doing. So it's a sensitivity that you got to sort of talk that over. I think that's one of those kind of things that you probably would want to have aerial shots, except in the dumpster situation. But that's really a pretty good thing. The other thing I'd add is a lot of us are using, it's a good and bad, the AI tools that are out there with your home, that you can actually get ideas from AI inputs, and we do that on the descriptions of houses now too. You might come up with a great description you think is wonderful for your property, but you might put it into Grok or ChatGPT, and all of a sudden it's going to come out with a whole different way of marketing your house. So I think that that they know about that, at least know about it, and maybe they don't use it, but I think that they should be able to know what the tools are that are out there. Yeah.
I use drone shots on land and property that's on a golf course, or it's, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
the drone is very
Definitely.
important for your
Definitely.
acreage,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yes.
I just have a comment to
Oh,
make.
sure.
This panel has been exceptional. I really appreciate you all.
Thank you.
But I think an important thing, especially now, is don't feel badly if we need to interview more than one agent and say, this is my property. What do you think? How are you going to market it? And what's your number? And explain to me what this market is all about. And all of that. And don't settle for the first one. The three of you would really have a problem competing.
We would if
We
we
got the
didn't,
experts.
but we do.
Don't settle for the first one.
Yeah.
Go for two or three. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
I have a question, getting back to your commissions. If you list a house for $1 million, and then you have another one for $500,000, so the commission's double. What do you do more for the $1 million house than you did for the $500,000 to justify double commission?
Who wants to answer that?
Oh, man. No, realistically, you're not doing that much more work. You
Sam,
really
I
aren't.
disagree with that.
On $1 million versus the
I
500?
put all
Yeah.
of my listings at a certain price point go into different magazines and so forth.
Oh,
and
I see what you're
we
saying, yeah.
advertise differently, and it's not necessarily the price. It's if we have a lot of Californians coming in and so forth. So I will put $1 million home that looks like a California home. It'll be in the magazines that are reaching out to the California people, and the social media that reaches out to those buyers. It's amazing what they can do. It literally will send out to buyers who are looking in Texas and they're from California, and I know this home has that look to it and the tile roof, and I want them to look at it and go, that's my house. So I actually do spend a lot of money on a $1 million listing. Not that I don't spend a lot on a 500, but I do go higher for those things. Also at a 1 million, to whatever, I'm there at every showing. So I do my best to actually stand in the house, because when you do have something like that, there's usually a lot of features that another agent coming in with their buyer doesn't really know. So I have a cheat sheet that I put in the kitchen, and it'll be sitting in there. It'll say, we have this and we have that and we have this. But I also like to stand there and say, also, look, we have this. So that if they don't read my cheat sheet, I'm standing there. And if they come up with a question and go, hey, is this on septic, or is this on well, or do you have whatever it is, propane or gas, I'm right there to answer it. Whereas the agent might be like, oh, I'll find out. And they never get back to them. They get sidetracked and another question came up. And so I like to be there to answer those questions. So when a home has that many things, which a $1 million home usually does, I like to be there to answer them. So I do spend a lot more time and marketing on a $1 million listing.
And I'll piggyback on that. I actually do attend every one of my showings in my listings. Doesn't matter where they're priced, because I know this community and I can speak to this community. Plus I live here, so I can really talk about clubs, groups, functions, etc. But the $1 million properties, you do go above and beyond to promote them, and the extent that you go to get some exposure, depending again on who the most likely buyer is, might mean that you're marketing to somebody in California, and there's different ways and there's different sources of exposure. So if I have to pay,
Thank
extra to forward this to realtors in a different state and a certain, thousands more agents in a different area so that they could potentially show it to someone, they have a listing that may be relocating. There's a lot more that does go into play depending on who the most likely buyer is and what more would require for that property. It's a good question. It's a very good question. But it's not the identical marketing for every property. It really kind of depends on what they're trying to accomplish, when they're trying to accomplish it, who's the most likely person that's going to buy that house. If you have a realtor that pocket promotes everything the exact same, it depends on the property as to whether that's applicable or not. In here, Kissing Tree might be a little bit more where I could do very much the same on each property, but it would depend, right? It would just depend. So, yeah, it needs to fit.
This has been a great discussion. We really appreciate our panel. Everyone has been fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I do think it's getting close to lunchtime. So
Yay.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.